it is a network essentially with the amount of podcasts that I'm involved in these days. But this is relatively new. For anybody new on board, I have a long-running podcast with over 250 episodes there if you want to have a gander at that. But this one is going out live to Facebook, Twitter, or not Instagram because they're doing their own thing, YouTube, and here in Get Vocal. So if you are over in Get Vocal, what's the crack? How's everybody doing? Also, this is kind of a weekly thing. Last week we had school days. The week before we had everybody's drinking. So the idea behind this is anybody down the side, if you have a ghost story, because tonight is all about ghost stories, feel free to jump in down the bottom here. Dave and Marie will swap in and out the whole time. You'll see it. It's a bit of crack. We'll run it for about an hour and have the laugh. Feel free to throw a comment up on the side because we have comments as well open on Twitter, Facebook, and YouTube, which we'll be able to see. So feel free. If it's comments about my moustache like it was last week, I don't know what to tell you. It's a two-tone moustache. It's a natural thing. It's God-given. So, of course, welcome back, Anne-Marie. Anne-Marie, ever-present comedy feature in Galway. Thank you very much for coming aboard. Dave is on the sauce already. And the show wouldn't be the show without himself down there. First of his name, Gordo of the House Rochford. How are you keeping, Gordo?
I'm good. I'm actually second of my name. Would you believe it?
Ah, Jesus.
Yeah. The father's Gordon. And if I ever have a son, I'm going to call him Gordon as well, because you have to have the third, especially with a Wexford accent.
Well, I mean, if you do have, like my family have a family tomb, and it's quite literally has been Tom, Bill for the last 300 fucking years. So they just, all they have to do is keep on putting the second, the third. They don't have to get a guy out with a chisel.
Every time they bury a Tom, they get a Bill.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, exactly. So that's the crack, everybody. And the reason why I went with ghost stories is, and I'm not overly ghosty and all the rest of it, but for some reason my wife is and her mother is. But I put up a thing I did a couple of years back with the other Gordon in our life, Gordon Hayden. We made a TV show with Irish ghost hunters, and we went down to Loftus Hall in Wexford, supposedly one of the most haunted places. I mean, we went in there. I was a non-believer. You can see the YouTube video, and the only reason why I came out with this is the thing has gotten over 400,000 views on YouTube, and still every single day people are bitching back and forth about ghosts and what they believe, and the amount of people that are telling me that I shouldn't have gone into that room. I'm like, dude, we're making a TV show. I was definitely going to go in that fucking room. Are you joking me? But I genuinely, there was a few points in it, and I'm not saying I'm a full-on believer, but there was some very strange scientific temperature drops. Like from one room to another, it dropped 9 degrees on a piece of machinery that my thermometer, it dropped 9 degrees. There was a couple of heat signals. There was a couple of things that were just eerie about it. But when we were doing it and coming back afterwards and all the rest, even on the drive back, all of us, we were having the crack on the way there, but on the way back, all of us were as weird as shit. Gordon, you did an episode on ghosts as well, didn't you?
I did indeed. We have a whole, it was kind of like a history of ghosts across the board, where they come from, the first mentions of ghosts, apart of like religious belief structures and stuff like that. Pliny the Younger was the first ever recorded ghost. It was like an early Egyptian godhead who died, and his spirit was supposed to come back. We went through all the stuff about like Native American Indians and why they believed that ghosts would come out of someone's body, and essentially we boiled it down to lack of education or part of their religious beliefs. People are afraid of death, but also it's quite cold maybe in the winter time when someone gets like shot with an arrow and the blood and the steam would come off the thing. You're like, oh look, the steam, it rises from his body. The white horse comes to take his spirit away. Like there's all this kind of stuff, you know. So yeah, there's loads of different belief systems. The maddest ones that I found were in Malaysia, where there's loads of different types of ghosts and they all have really particular purposes, you know. So there's one ghost that stops kids from climbing trees. It's a woman's head, and her head is tied to the branch with her hair, and then her spine and her guts all hang down. And she doesn't have a body, just a disembodied head that's tied to a branch with hair. And if the kids go near the branches of the tree, the ghostly woman's guts will strangle the children to death. So it's just like, do you know when we were young and it's like, don't swallow chewing gum, it'll stick your arse together.
Yeah.
This kind of thing.
Crust of bread will make your hair curly.
This is it. Eat that up and you get hair in your chest. And sure, now they're dying to get the kids to be doing that kind of thing, hormone transplants and all that, right? But it's weird like that they have such specific particular ghosts there that like there's one ghost. They actually do it still. Like when you leave something in your bedside locker. That there's a ghost that actually steals stuff from your bedside locker. So it's a common practice to leave like pins and needles just scattered randomly in the tops of your bedside locker, so that when the ghost comes in to put his hand in, apparently the needles and pins will prick his fingers. Now, I don't know how many people have seen the movie Ghost, but the effort that Patrick Swayze had to go to learn how to touch something.
I knew it. I knew he was coming into it somewhere.
That weird guy that looks like a bloodhound. You know, that guy in the basin, in the train station. Like, it's a lot of effort. If he knows there's pins and needles in that shit, he's not going to be like, hey, to push the drawer open to get his hand in to be like, oh, there's pins and needles. Like, it's bullshit. But, I mean, they believe it. It's possibly to stop real people from stealing stuff from you.
Yeah.
But again,
Kleptomaniac Brandy.
A lot of the ghost stories lean back into basic human fear.
I mean, the one in Loftus Hall was the residing story that went over. There was a few, like it had been a nunnery at one stage, and 3 different nuns had all died on the one half landing. It was like, well, stop putting slippy shit on the half landing. You know, it was like,
yeah, the
and then of
slippy
course,
nun shoes.
The shared story, which has gone to the Hellfire Club. We live really close to the Hellfire Club here as well. But the shared story from there, where a dark stranger arrived at a house and they played cards that night because there was nothing else to do in West Wexford at the time.
Oh,
and when the cards, a card hit the floor and they looked down and he's got hooves for feet. Maybe some people need a pedicure. Maybe that's. I'm just saying that sometimes. But definitely that day it was a strange thing, and like Valley Spirit Communications, and we're talking 9 degrees in our temperatures, not American temperatures. 9 degrees was a big drop. Like it went from 12 to 3 degrees in the threshold of a door, just dropped.
It went from a nice day outside to inside of a fridge.
Exactly. I mean, they had horrific stories. That particular room, apparently, they actually did. They did. There was no apparently. They did find the bones of a baby buried in the wall inside. And it was horrendous stories came with this. Like, I think the place was almost. They almost I suppose, diluted the heaviness of the place by telling the story of the cloven-footed devil showing up and he shot up through the ceiling and all the rest of it, because there was a couple of other horrendous stories. Anne-Marie, surely be to God, you're from not a Hascraw. Where are you from?
No, I'm from Kilchimon, Mayo.
Kilchimon. Surely be to God, you have a ghost story for me out of the west of Ireland. It's full of ghosts.
We only ever had, the urban legend ghost stories as kids that we used to tell, about the one, about the human lick.
Tell me more, the human lick.
So it was like, this is what we used to.
Is this like something to keep the children away from the priests?
No.
Has this turned into OnlyFans already?
It was like when we were kids, and like say we'd go to our cousins or sleepovers, and we'd go, oh, tell a ghost story. This would be the only one we would know, and it would be that there was a little girl that had her puppy, her dog, and grew up with her, and every night she'd go to bed, and the dog lay beside her in bed every night. And if she woke up scared during the night, she'd put her hand out and the dog would lick it, and that'd be fine. And then, so another night anyway, she goes to bed and she wakes up during the night and she hears this dripping noise. She's like, what's the noise?
I have a feeling I know where this is going.
Like, put her hand down anyway, and the dog licks the hand, and she's like, okay, go to sleep. And the dripping noise continues, so she can't really settle. So eventually she gets up and out of bed and she goes into the bathroom. And in the bathroom, the dog is hanging. And the blood is dripping down. And written on the wall is the lick of a human is like the lick of a dog. In the dog's blood.
I would have written, your hand tastes lovely. Thanks very much. Good night.
Did you have some crisps before you went to bed tonight?
I didn't know what way that was going to go, Anne-Marie. I have to be honest with you.
We had the warning.
Said it was like when we were kids, so it was definitely PG.
Right. I thought you were going to be like, and then in the wee hours of the morning, she went downstairs. She got a pot of peanut butter. And the dog licked.
I'm looking
And
at
she
my
thought it
reflection.
was
I
a
actually
human.
look like I've turned into a ghost, Stuart, since this started.
Yeah.
And that
No,
freaking
it's-
light.
Because we had, there was always the warning story with us, because I'm from a very rural part of South Tipperary. There was the warning story about this particular road. Don't go up that. There's fucking ghosts up that road. It's like, how did they pick a road? But we all took along with it anyway. But as it turns out later, throughout the 80s, it was the IRA actually were up that road practicing and storing guns. So we were dead right to stay away from that situation. I mean, you know, gang of lads in balaclavas and all the rest of it. But it was explainable. Dave, surely you have a ghost story.
They were down the end of the road, Tom, going, rah, rah. You were like, I'm not
I
going
did
down there.
imagine there was, who's on fucking boo duty tonight? Who's on boo duty? Come on. Get this. Jerry, you're getting the sheet on, Jerry. You're wearing the fucking sheet, Jerry.
Chucky Carla.
Oh, fuck's sake.
But Ireland loves ghosts, don't we? Like, we do fancy ourselves being, you know, a spooky kind of a spiritual, supernatural. Because when you start looking into it, the amount of places, like, now there was no funding to make any more shows, but the amount of places that immediately jumped on it. Now, I say there's no funding, but TV3 and Virgin still play the fucking thing every Halloween. I don't see a beam for making that TV show, but at least 20 and even prior to making it, we met up with the American ghost hunting team who had just been there. Now, apparently, we were going to pick up some production tips. We were going to totally rob every fucking notion that these guys had, because these guys had endless money. But it was hilarious because I didn't open my mouth, because these guys were all production guys and were chit chatting about production and all the rest of it and camera shots. And it wasn't until I had to ask the guy out straight out, the head producer. I went, well, what's scary about this place, Loftus Hall? And he goes, well, first of all, and you know, he was real LA, you know, ironic haircut, really expensive glasses, you know, bit of a wanker. But his two reasons for Loftus Hall being scary was, one, it was in Wexford. And I said, fair enough, I get you. But number two, this is the most amazing thing to say to somebody who comes from the foot of the Galtee Mountains. He went, when that door closes behind you, man, it is like darkness you've never seen before. I'm like, darkness? Well, you can't see darkness anyway. It's dark with horse. But if it is darkness, you think I'm frightened of the dark. Are you fucking joking me? You have no idea where I grew up, do you? Like, I said prayers to the first street light I fucking saw when I moved to Dublin, like, and I was 23 years of age, you know? So sometimes I think it can be conflated quite a bit, but like, is there any juicy ones? Like, have you, like, Dave, juicy ghost story? Come on, let's have it.
I've heard loads over the years. I was actually in Loftus Hall one Halloween. A load of us went, just when the lads was driving, so we had a few cans. But right. There was a big caretaker there.
Had a few cans went driving, yeah.
Yeah, well, yeah, he wasn't now. I won't name any names. I wasn't driving. But yeah, they wouldn't actually let us in.
And some days still, I see the spirit of my driving license passing by on Halloween night.
I suppose trying to think of a good one. I know my cousin in Waterford told me he was working in an old house in Waterford City. He's a plumber. And it was being renovated, this whole big 3-story place, into some restaurant or something. But he came in one day and there was a hole in the roof. And he was like, what happened there? And he's like, oh, did you not hear the story? It's like 2 of the boys were working up there the weekend, up in the attic. And supposedly they seen like a ghost of a little boy in old-fashioned clothes in the corner. And they didn't know what to do, but it ran at them. So they jumped through the ceiling to get away. And then that was the story. But later on, he was the electrician came in, and he goes to Paul, like, my cousin, why is there a hole in the roof? And he goes, did you not hear the story that, like, there was the ghost up there, supposedly the boys jumped through the roof. He was laughing about it. He was like, he went pale white, supposedly. He was up there the Friday and working up there, and every time he'd go up, the lights would go off. And he'd have to go down. He was the only person in the building, and reset the lights, and he'd go back up, and then the lights were turned off again. And he wouldn't work up there again after that. So I don't know how the job got done, but that was just one I heard.
There's something scary, always scarier about children, isn't there? Like, if a child is a ghost.
Definitely.
There's like Damo Clark, a comedian that we both know, he had a great bit before he actually had a child, and he talked about the scariness of having a child, that if someday he comes into the room and his own child is sitting just looking into the corner, going, "Hey, Daddy, do you want to play with my friends?" It's like, oh, and our kid is the blondiest. Look, he's straight out of like essentially the lads from Hanson. So it could be one of the children of the corn. If I come into the room someday and he's staring into the corner, going, "Daddy," now I don't know why he'd have a British accent. It wouldn't make any sense at all.
That'd be the
That'd probably
scariest
be the
part.
scariest thing.
Yeah.
He's turning
Daddy.
into the corner, but his head is facing you. That's when you get scared.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Oh, Valley Spirit.
Yeah, I'm going to jump off and let
Communication.
them in. It sounds like they
Yeah,
have a
cool,
good one.
Anne-Marie. Thank.
Yeah.
Jump over, so whoever's from Valley Spirit, grab that spot. A ghost story with some videos of evidence that we caught. Oh Jesus! Oh, this will be good. Come on over, so tell the story.
Hi, everybody.
How's it going? Oh, introduce yourself, madam. I'm Tom. That's Gordo down the center, and that's Dave over to the side. How are you?
Wonderful. I'm Tammy Petty. I'm here in California with Valley Spirit Communications, and we got to do 3 paranormal investigation tours in a cave. The cave was built to keep beer cold back in the 1800s, and they used to use Chinese workers to build the mines and all the like for ghost pan or for gold hunting and stuff like that. They would build the mines.
They were the best. They were the best manual laborers. Only second place to the Irish.
Yes.
Yeah, it's true.
Yes, definitely.
Which is why we still honor their memory by habitually and almost instinctively eating Chinese food after we consume alcohol. I don't know if you know much about Irish culture, but that's why we have that innate need for it.
Well, the city didn't want to pay them, so they collapsed the mine on them. So in this cave, there was 187 deceased Chinese workers. So I gave offerings before we did the tours.
Explain the offerings, Tammy. What are these offerings you gave?
I gave Chinese offerings. Apparently, when the Chinese die, if they have any debt, then the relatives have to pay off their debt, so they'll have a good afterlife. So I investigated and found that Joss paper is an offering to give to them. I was scared. My tour sold out in 5 minutes, and I thought, what if nothing happens? What am I going to do? So amazingly, we had, and there was 22 people in each tour. So every time we seen something, we all seen it. So it was awesome. And right now I'm going to show you something that happened. Yeah.
Jesus!
Here we go. Can you make her video big there, Tom, on your side?
Yeah, I will. 1 second.
That's me right there. And you're going to see some orbs coming. Chinese
orbs.
Right there is where the mine is, an opening to the mine.
Okay.
Do you see that? That was like a flutter. And then look at this. Look at that. That's not dust. That was.
Oh, Jesus, right. Yeah, all those roundy little dots.
Yeah. But the one, that went kind of in my behind there, that was, that's not dust when it changes, way and stuff. We even caught a shadow. Okay, now this is slow motion. These are people on the tour. You're going to want to look here. And it'll be in just a little bit. You're going to see a shadow raise up from the ground and walk faster than what the people are moving. So it's going to take just a little bit, and there's going to be a big flash before it comes, because somebody had taken a picture. So right now it's dark. You don't see it. It's going to take just a little bit. But it was amazing. The owner loves everything paranormal, so he welcomed the team. The manager was very scared of everything paranormal. It hasn't came up yet. And so
Tommy, sorry to interrupt you. What is the place? Is it a mine? And can you go into the mine? Is it active again? Did they dig everything out? They dug the bodies out? Like
what? It's a see the shadow. That shadow just raised up and started walking. I'll rewind it a little bit.
yeah, if you want to even up the camera there a little bit, yeah.
Yeah, it's a bar. So that's why they have the cave to keep the beer cold. It's a brewery that is still standing to this day, and it was built back in the 1800s.
So without wanting to
you're gonna
seem
see-
skeptical, a lot of the people that are seeing the ghost in this place are probably drunk.
Yeah. Well, we had drinks while we were doing this, and I asked the lady, "Why don't you ask the spirit, a question?" And she said, "Are there any spirits here?" And it was so funny. It said drunk on my laptop. I had a spirit box that did words, and it said drunk. And then the I caught is, "Hey, let's get him out of here." It was amazing and a little scary.
Surely that wasn't the first time that someone in a bar shouted out, "Are there any spirits here?"
Any spirits? Top shelf.
Yeah. It sounds weird. Like so it was a mine, and then
it's a mine that had two openings that went to a cave. And Nevada City did a lot of things they didn't want people to know about. So they had tunnels under the city, and like they have a tunnel from a hotel to a St. Catholic's church. They say the nuns built it. Why would it go to a hotel? Just a lot of, they wouldn't let the Chinese walk on the streets. They had to use the tunnels under the streets. So there's a lot of tunnels and stuff. And
you'd be surprised how many American towns and even some Irish towns have interconnecting tunnel systems for transporting stuff around the place. Like it's could it be for I dare I say human trafficking? Is it being used for that today? Is that why those tunnels are disused? There's a lot of stuff going on being passed around, as well as the turn of the century when this was probably happening. This is the late 19th century, I guess.
Yeah. People say in the town next to where I filmed this that's still going on today.
I wouldn't doubt it. I wouldn't doubt it. So the late 1800s, like they were talking about consolidating the American monetary system into what we now know as the Federal Reserve, and there was a lot of these monopolies and trusts that were being put together, like from Rockefellers and JP Morgans and these kind of like big business dudes that were putting businesses together. So like they used these workers and they threw them away. They also like defunct a bunch of different businesses. Like there was a tram service or an overground railroad service in almost every city and town in the whole of America. And J.D. Rockefeller came along, and because he was the monopoly oil owner, he wanted to have automobiles around the whole country. So he bought all the trains and defunct them and put them up and killed a lot of people. A lot of railroad workers had to be disappeared. They were moving people all up and down the country. So like, I'm sure there's tunnels under everywhere that would have ghostly tales. But is orbs all you have on those videos?
Yeah, look at that. It's crazy.
But I said it in a way that's like, is that all you have? And you were like, yeah, look, it's awesome. Like, can you tell us the significance of the orbs? Like, what's the...
Have you seen orbs before, Tammy?
Yes, we've seen them with our eyes. We've seen colored ones. I've seen a blue one. I mean, we're all looking. 22 people are looking in this dark spot in the cave, and all of a sudden, boom, there's a blue orb. So...
Now, are we ruling out like lamps? Are we ruling out like LEDs? Are we ruling out like what does it mean to see an orb? Like if you're a paranormal tour guide, I'm guessing.
Well, you want to make sure that see, I filmed this before. Like we use a heat lamp. We think that spirits can absorb heat and use that as energy. So,
like Patrick Swayze in the train station.
Yeah,
there you go.
Exactly. So I filmed this cave before I turned the heat lamp on, and there was nothing flying around at all. There was no dust, because a lot of people don't believe orbs; they think it's just dust particles. So Before I do any investigation, I go in and I video it and check it out. I'll stir things around and see, what the dust looks like. And this was not dust. They were loving the heat lamp. They were wanting the people to come in. It was a good time.
Yeah, there's a bunch of lonely Chinese lads that are stuck in the back of a bar and they can't have any crack.
Yeah, of course there are.
Do you do tours like ghost tours the whole time?
I've only done 3, and after the 3 at the Stonehouse, the manager said, "Please don't come back and do this anymore." She was very scared.
Why, what was wrong with him or her?
It's a beautiful place, and a lot of people like to get married there. She was scared that people wouldn't want to get married there if they knew it was haunted. So, and that's the only place.
It ruined the wedding videos with all the orbs and all on it.
What's that?
It'd ruin all the wedding videos and pictures with all the orbs in them.
Yeah, it would. Yeah, so that's the only tours I've ever given. And it was awesome. It sold out, but it's hard to find places here in California that are old and still standing. They like to tear down historical buildings and build new ones.
Do you like? Are you a ghost believer? Like, what's your most visceral experience with a ghost or a spirit?
See, like when I was a kid, I've never lived in a haunted house. I've never seen dead people. I've never, I watched the Ghost Adventures and I seen their equipment and I fell in love with SLS. That's the one that maps out body parts like a stick figure. It's a sensor. It was used to play video games. You can hook it up to your PC and it'll map out ghosts, supposedly. And I've caught
It'll map out a ghost.
Here, I can show you. Let's see, I've got video. Just 1 second.
Oh, Lord.
Yeah. I wasn't a believer. I just thought, I'm going to get all the equipment and see what I can do.
And you set up a Valley Spirit Communications. Are you a company, Tammy?
I'm just a team. I'm a team, and I only have one other person in my team. It's hard to find people that want to go somewhere. It's so hard to find places.
No, in California, listen, that gang of lads came over from California that we basically robbed all their ideas. And these guys had printed T-shirts. They had business cards. They were all over the whole ghost thing. They loved ghosts. California, they love ghosts in California.
I'm in the hills. I'm in the northern part, so I'm not by LA or that. Yeah. I'm in the Gulf Country.
The countryside.
Yes.
You're in the countryside where people haven't time for ghosts in the countryside.
Up in Sedona, is it?
No.
I love a drop of Sedona. Yeah, it's a lovely drink when you're off the beer for off the beer for Lent.
Are you up in the desert?
No, in the mountains.
On the mountains, that high up. So you're nearly in what, Oregon?
No, I'm in. Sacramento is 45 minutes away from me. San Francisco's 2 hours away, and skiing is an hour and a half away.
And
I live in a really cool place. Okay, here's the SLS.
Christ, what are we in? Tammy, what's this? Explain this to us.
Okay, so this is an
ghosts.
SLS camera. It's a sensor that was used in Xbox video games for dancing. Well, the Ghost Adventures decided they could hook it up to their PC and it would map out people. This is me. I'm the big one. And that little one, I have no clue what that is.
You've no clue what the little one is?
No. It mapped out, like, look at it. And I was playing music, too. And it's
breakdancing, Tammy.
Weird.
Can you get in close, Tom? Can you make that bigger? Can you get in closer to the screen, Tommy?
Yeah.
Because I think in the top right hand side of your screen, it's like your video, and then on the left, it's like the mapped out bit.
Let me make it smaller. Oh, wait. Because I have a really big computer. Let's see. Let me try that again. There we go.
Careful now, you might be showing something personal.
Yeah, careful now, Tammy. Yeah.
Might see a couple of orbs.
Okay, so this is my computer when I was filming it. It's on like a tablet light. This is my daughter's artwork in the background.
Okay.
So,
Is your daughter into Satan? Is that like?
No, that's a ram, and she was doing astrology signs.
Oh, cool. Aries.
Oh, right.
And this like measures heat.
And where was this taken, Tammy? Was this in your home?
My living room. And I have a lot of videos like this. I have some with me not even in it. And I can't see anything with my real eyes, yet there's a little person or little thing.
I don't know if you've seen the comments. Tom, Jerry McBride said that ghost is doing Gangnam Style.
Oh, good man, McBride.
Yeah. Tammy, what would you think? What would you think about the hypothesis that ghosts don't haunt places, but they haunt people?
Oh, now we're talking.
I've never came across anything evil. I've never came across a demon. I don't know. I think people, your mind is a pretty great thing, and I think that some people just have a little bit of mental illness. I mean, I don't know. I've never that's gotten anything attached to them. This is a reverse one. A little harder to see though, but that's not me.
You're saying that some people that are interested in ghosts are susceptible to mental illness.
Well, you can. Your brain, what you think of something hard enough, you don't think it's true, it can happen. I just think that some people get in their head and just start, I don't know. I've never in real life ever met anyone that's had an attachment. I don't know.
Yeah, some people say like that the ghost haunts the person and not the place, because it's not really a ghost. Like what from my research anyway, what I've done about ghosts and spirits and extra normal or paranormal occurrences, that if you're opening yourself up to communing with other spirits, that a demon or a what would you call it, an extra normal or paranormal entity, something that could be like from another dimension or a not corporeal spirit or entity, let's say, will pretend to be like a person, or pretend to be like when you have a Ouija board or whatever, that you're calling on the spirit realm, and they'll be like, oh yeah, I'm your old Uncle Dan. It's old Uncle Dan here. And then you'll ask Uncle Dan a question, and the demon, because it has access to like, fifth dimensional energy, time and space don't exist, and they're able to access any information that's out there. They're able to answer all the questions, and they pretend to be Uncle Dan, and you're like, oh, Uncle Dan, come on in, let's talk. And the minute you invite them in, it's like a demon or some kind of a demon is too kind of religious a word. It's more of like a force, like an evil force or a powerful force, let's say, that's coming in. David Icke talks about them, and from the Gnostic Gospels as well, they talk about it. They're called the Archons, who are like trans-dimensional beings that live in our space, in the space that we live in, but we can't see them or feel them or hear them or anything like that, can't sense them, only very lightly. Am I gone?
No.
I think you want to refresh.
Can you see him?
Refresh your browser there, Tom.
Yeah.
There's my arm right there. I mean, yeah, sure, this could be an evil entity. But
Look at it.
Bad, I've had a wonder. My life is wonderful. Nothing bad's ever happened. It's my arm, so it's like mapping out something that I couldn't see with my eyes.
But do you think are you like now that you started this company and you're going looking for them? Do you think that they're coming to you? They're coming to try and get to you. They know that you're like a conduit to get into the physical realm. That would you be afraid of being possessed?
No.
Have you taken the proper precautions and protections and stuff like that?
Like I said, your mind is, it's intent. Well, when we ghost hunt, we're trying to find spirits that may need help crossing over. We have a medium in our team that can cross over spirits that need help.
Yeah.
I'm more about just getting it caught on tape, you know. But our team, every time we go out, something happens. Other teams, I guess that doesn't happen. Apparently, they can go out and nothing ever happens, and go back, and then something will then happen after going there like 10 times.
And what kind of stages of haunting? So, like, the handbook basically for dealing with ghosts was written by Ed and Lorraine Warren, and Ed in the book The Demonologist kind of gave the blueprint for ghost hunting that people use nowadays, and some of the tools such as the Spiricom, which is like a detuned AM radio that cycles through the different frequencies to try and catch the ghost, and the ghost will use the vibrating frequencies to be able to communicate. I think Tom, you and Gordon Hayden were using that Spiricom.
Yeah. That's exactly what it was.
In Loftus Hall. So it's like, get out of here. So it's just like goes like that. He wrote about the different stages of haunting. So the first stage is like cold spots, or you hear footsteps, and then when you go look, there's nothing there. Stage 2 would be shadows and orbs, the stuff that you're talking about: whispers, laughing, giggling, static electricity, marks on the floor. Stage 3 is like hearing voices or words clearly, seeing apparitions, shadows, unseen hands grabbing or touching people. Stage 4 would be like the poltergeist style, where it's like flying or moving objects, Patrick Swayze in the train station, shaking furniture, feeling like pushed or tapped or poked. And then stage 5 is the biting, slapping, scratching kind of Exorcist movie type stuff, where you would wake up in the middle of the night and you're after being scratched. And what the ghost is trying to do, or demon, as Ed Warren kind of counted them as, it's trying to break you down physically and mentally so that you're in such a state of vulnerability. If you've ever watched the Conjuring movies, like those families, by the time they're possessed, or remember the family's possessed, they're absolutely fucked up and drawn out. They haven't slept in weeks. They're traumatized. And when you're in that vulnerable state, the demon can pop himself into you and start taking you over, start making you do stuff, invariably, resulting in self-harm or even death by suicide. So, like, what levels have been measured, or what your team say they go out? Are you at like stage 2, stage 3, or have you had any more serious ones? Like how?
We're at stage 2.
Stage 2, okay.
Yeah, no one's ever been scratched. We have never, we didn't see that shadow with our eyes. We seen it when I was reviewing the footage.
Yeah.
We've never been scratched. Never. We always use a heat lamp, so our batteries are never drained. We never get drained, and no one ever feels nauseous.
Have you ever had any ectoplasm or anything like that?
No. Our medium, though, sometimes she would go and she'd get nauseous and almost vomit. But then after the heat lamp, no more. So we truly believe that spirit can absorb heat and use it as energy, so they don't have to take it from people.
Sorry, I was just wondering. There's a chap we knew. He's a second cousin of my mother's. He was an exorcist. He was in County Kilkenny. The guy died in his 50s of a heart failure. So I mean, he spoke as if it was a real thing. Does anybody know of, like Gordon was saying, anybody know of somebody who was possessed? I mean, we know plenty of pricks out there, but is there anybody who you've heard stories of? Have you heard any stories in your digging, Gordo, of people who were actually possessed?
Well,
do you want me to jump off? Should I let that lady come back on?
You're more than welcome to hang out, Tammy. Put it on the FaceTime and just hang out and chat if you want.
Okay.
Does anybody else want to jump in? Sorry, beg your pardon.
Make yourself big, Tom.
I will. Just because. No, 1 second.
I don't know what happened there to your computer. Did you get cut off?
It was strange because I could see all you absolutely perfect and full bars on the old internet here. As Anne-Marie quickly pointed out, the ghosts had taken Tom's computer. They had the back as well.
That's what it was.
You think the fuckers have paid the bill as well if they're at it?
That happens. I have had evidence where I wanted to show somebody something and my equipment wouldn't even work at all. I mean,
I've been like that after a few drinks, Tammy.
Gordo, stop. Your equipment always works. It's always in top order.
I know. There's always ectoplasm left behind.
Jesus.
Matt Thompson said here, was ploughing a field in Wicklow late one night. On the top ditch was a fairy fort. Beside it, there's an old gate that was grown over. Pulling back up the hill, the gate is swinging open. He then says, talk about shitting the togs.
Well, I live just up the road from Matt, and I think I know where he's on about, because there's a spot up there, they call it a fairy fort. Now, a lot of archaeologists would tell you that there were actually old ring forts back in the day, and then things like lime kilns and stuff like that got built in them. But they won't. It's not even a planning permission thing. People will not build, and they call these things fairy forts. They will not build them. There was an old thing years ago in around us that if people were feuding over land and stuff like that, what they'd do is they'd leave a bundle of sticks tied with ribbon in on the field that they were disputing, and it was supposedly a sign that the fairies were in on it some which way, and they'd claim the field for themselves. They were stacked together in a certain way, you know, they were tied together like
a faggot of
an
sticks.
effigy of some sort. A faggot of sticks that the fairies had left, Gordo. Yeah. So, you know, call it what you will.
That's maybe that's why we use those words as derogatory terms, because it's like fear of
the unknown. Dave, did you say you'd heard of it?
No, I heard before about fairy forts that when, say, a child died before it was christened, and the church wouldn't allow them to be buried in the graveyard, so the parents would bury them in a fairy fort, or the fairy, and then that's, I suppose, that over the years, then if that did happen, that's why people were told not to go near them, because they were actually graveyards.
When you were digging up for the foundations of houses, you could come across like mass child graves. That is one of the best I've ever heard. We talked about fairy forts at length, and I never heard that, but that's a fucking brilliant explanation. Like some
Thanks. Well, it
some shit like the whatchamacallit, the septic tank in Chewham or whatever, but just like in a field in a fairy fort.
Yeah.
Fuck.
Well, it was the same as if somebody committed suicide back in the day as well. They weren't allowed to be built in. It was an unmarked grave if they were given a grave in a graveyard, if they were. But a lot of times, I didn't realize a fairy fort. So, what was the feeling that the child spirit would be protected if it was buried in the fairy fort, Dave?
Well, that's what I've heard, yeah. But I suppose if you think though logically about it, maybe the rumors were built up to protect the fort, like, you know, as a mini graveyard, or maybe did. But the rumors is to protect the child, and also then it harps back to, you know, you suppose they hear, and you're meant to hear on stormy nights, hear music or children laughing or laughter and dancing around the fairy forts or something.
I heard that one all right as well. Yeah.
Possibly.
But you collect a lot of dust around the fairy forts, so maybe, you know, the dust would lead to orbs.
The fairies were blamed for a lot of stuff though in Ireland. Like they had, did you ever hear the story of the Changelings?
Yeah.
So like, I don't know if anybody knows. Where if you had it, what's that, Tom?
No, sorry. Yeah, we'll tell it.
You're gone a bit digital there again. If you wanna just refresh the page real quick, it should fix it. The Changelings, as far as I understood it, was you'd have a normal baby, quote unquote normal, in the cot, and the fairies would come along and swap it out for a changeling, and the changeling ended up being, you know, a child that had special needs or Down syndrome or something like that, and the parents believed that it was a normal child up until a certain point, normal quote unquote, and then the fairies came along and took the normal child for their own, you know, like a David Bowie and Labyrinth type situation, and you know, they take the baby for themselves and leave a changeling. Like, that's a weird thing to blame on fairies, right?
Yeah.
Have you ever heard the story of the changeling, or what do you know about it?
I've seen stuff, or I've heard stuff about the changelings. Yeah, leaving, basically what you said. I never heard like the child born on to be some sort of disability, but I've heard that. Yeah, you know that. they take the child away, and isn't there some tradition where how you get the child back? You have to do something, or you have to leave something.
I'm looking it up now to see if I can find it, but I think to dissuade the fairies from getting you, you had to leave a tongs from the fire over the baby's crib. But I think the practical applications of that are that they were stopping the farmyard cats from coming in and scratching the baby, which they used to do.
In the baby's breath.
Yeah, it's weird. I'm looking here. Yeah, changelings. They do their. The fire tongs or scissors were left over the crib. People were warned not to overlook the baby or look upon them with parents with envy. But the changelings are in loads of different folklore traditions, including Scandinavian and German. If you baptize the baby as quickly as possible, it would prevent fairy abduction. But if you didn't, they'd take unbaptized babies very quick. Yeah,
again, it's kind of, isn't it, to like religion and Catholicism.
It also says here the new baby would be replaced with a child that had deformities or strange features. They may also be, and this is from an old text, they may also be aloof, cry constantly, generally misbehave, become non-verbal or violent. It sounds like, the child might be autistic.
Yeah, exactly. They're trying to justify or come up with a reason why, I suppose.
Not, quote unquote, normal.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's mad that they go to that length to go like, yeah, the child doesn't have autism. He was changed out by the fairies. Like, that's a weird fucking thing.
Yeah. So
they said that's what they say. In Ireland, it's common to change out an elderly dying fairy with a baby. So they changed the spirit of the baby and put the fairy infant. They can't survive on fairy food, that they need human food to survive. Very weird. The Scots believed that the fairies had done a deal with the devil, and every 7 years they owed him a tithe. The devil demanded a blood sacrifice, so they'd take a child and put an old fairy in their place to sacrifice him and pay their blood dues. Like, some of that is fucking dark, man. Some of that should be dark. I wonder what's going on with Tom.
Maybe something paranormal.
Maybe we were talking about the ghosts. The orbs came and got him. Have you any ghost stories, Dave, for the folks at home?
Well, I have another story, a ghost story. I don't know, but I remember years and years ago, the night my grandmother died. We were so obviously very sad, and we all went into the hospital, and then back to my uncle's house and had a few drinks. And I just wasn't feeling it, so I just said I'd go back. My uncle's home was right beside my father's house, so I went back home on my own. And then I always remember I was making a sandwich, and all of a sudden I heard this like real kind of deep groan. And I was like, "What is that?" So I was like walking around, turning all the lights on in the house, couldn't hear anything, see anything. Back to make my sandwich. A few minutes later, again, the big. And I was like thinking, like, that's the banshee. The banshee, this old thing at the night someone dies.
Yeah.
And then, like, I don't have it, isn't it like Tom would be right up for, it's meant to be if you have the O in between your last name begins with O, it's supposed to be the banshee will call.
Yeah, the banshee follows the family. Yeah, it's not for everybody. It's just for certain families.
I was like, "Oh Jesus!" But I remember I left all the lights on in the house, and my mum and dad and sister came back from my uncle's house a couple of hours later, and all the lights are on in the house, and I'm just sitting in my bed pretending I'm asleep. And they're like, "Why are all the lights on?" I was like, didn't want to tell them. Obviously, I was about 18 or something at the time. I was like, "I'm not telling them that." So I just said, "I just turn on the lights." I was kind of just, trying to belittle it. But a few months later, then I remember I was in the house again on my own. And I heard the same groan. And I realized the fridge that we got, the fridge freezer, made that noise.
It's filling up with gas.
But because was in that place at the time.
Yeah, of course.
And
Yeah.
It was in a dark house, completely silent. My mind completely went, and I wouldn't be like thinking that way at all. But yeah, just thought it was the banshee calling me.
Yeah, man. I'd say fucking.
I love that.
I'd say cats having sex would be put down for an awful lot of ghostly noises in all Ireland. You know? Like how many nights if you had cat?
Sounds. I agree. I totally agree.
How many nights like would farmyard cats be getting raped outside your bedroom window, and you'd just be like, "Oh, that's the cats," and you wouldn't pay any notion to it. But then the next day, when you find out someone in your family died, you're like, "Oh my god, I heard the banshee last night," and the cat's there going like getting fucking.
We actually
with a hooked penis with backwards facing hairs on it, I'd be screaming as well.
We have a blind cat here in the house, and what was freaky one day, I was here and she was just like over the other side of the room, and obviously she's blind, so she's not looking at anything. But as she was just sitting there, all of a sudden she just looked as if she'd seen something.
Yeah.
Tracked it across the room, and I was looking around trying to see what this blind cat was looking at, even though obviously she wasn't looking at anything. But it was just the weirdest thing. But I can imagine someone else taking that a whole another level. You know,
I see a lot of videos on like TikTok and Instagram and stuff of people taking pictures of their pets and or taking videos of their pets. You know, and they'd be there and they have like a dog and two cats or whatever, and then they'd be like, "Oh yeah, look at the cats and dog are freaking out," and they're pointing to like an open doorway in the sitting room or whatever, and they're back and all three animals are looking at the door going like burr, burr,
yeah.
burr, and the cats are like that little weird clicking noise they make. Like obviously they see something there, and then all of a sudden they're just like simultaneously going, "Oh no, it's grand now," and they go lie down again. But obviously those animals can sense stuff that we can't. They have different rods and cones in their eyes, so they can see different what would you call it? Different frequencies of light or different spectrums of light than we can. Yeah, man, bananas. Sharon says the night my granny died, my cousin and I were in her house, and the rest of the family were at the hospital. The lights went off for a split second, and then we got the call a few minutes later to say that she just died. Weird. Yeah, that's crazy. Is there anyone there, Garrett or Sharon or Lindsay or Amory or anyone want to jump on? I don't know where Tom has gone AWOL. But here's Sharon now. Good girl, Sharon.
Hello, how's it going?
Very good. A couple of nights after my granny died, you know, we're lying in the bed, all of us, and obviously in our separate beds, but lying asleep, and we heard this big bang, and there was no lights on the whole place, the whole town, like everything was dark, pitch black dark. Like you open your eyes, it's as dark as when you have them closed. It was scary, and there was this ferocious smell, like an overpowering smell of freshly baked brown bread. So when I woke up, I was in my bedroom, my little brother was in his bedroom, and my mum and dad were in their bedroom. We all woke up and we met in the hall in the dark, like reaching. It was like fucking Stevie Wonder meeting Ray Charles at a party. Like it was, you know, all of it like fucking padding our way along the walls. Like, that's you, Ray. That's me, Stevie. Like trying to find each other in the dark, right? And we were like, "Can you smell bread?" It's like, "Yeah, we can smell bread." I mean, Nanny used to cook brown bread like every 2-3 days. She'd have a loaf of brown bread. Like that's the smell you associate with her. So and it was like this big electric, you know, fuck up at the transformer. It was out. The electricity was out for a couple of days, or whatever. So I think it was our freshly dead grandmother logging in with us just to go like, "Don't worry, lads, electricity's just gone off. You'll be grand. You're not blind." You know, this kind of thing. And it happened a couple of times. My ma said like she'd wake up in the middle of the night and she'd smell brown bread. She'd be like, "Oh yeah, there's my mother now." Like,
yeah, just that little like hint of, "Hello, it's time to remember me" or something.
Yeah, and it's not like a fucking hallucination, or it's not like because you can see things with your eyes, or like Dave said, like you can hear something and go like, "Oh, that was the fucking," it was the you know, like Kevin McAllister going downstairs and the fireplace down at the furnace is going like moo, and you're scared shitless, and then you know, after an hour and a half of like brutally assaulting two Italian American men. He goes down to the basement and he's like, I've been through the ringer now. A fucking fireplace doesn't scare me because I almost got like killed by two men and almost killed them.
Yeah.
I mean, how afraid would Elizabeth Fritzl be of the dark? I wouldn't say very much. I'd say, do you know what I mean? It's not something on our list of things to be scared about. Maybe like going out to the shed and having the door shut behind you. That's probably higher up on the scare for Elizabeth Fritzl. But it's all relative.
Yeah, don't lock any doors.
Yeah. Sharon, you said have you got any ghost stories? Tom's frozen again. It's not a great night for Tom on the internet.
No, like Anne-Marie said, maybe he's been taken over by some kind of spirit. Maybe Valley spirits, like, sent something there or something.
He's after getting orbed.
I've had a few kind of experiences with, like, if you want to say paranormal. I'm not like a big believer in it, but I don't discount things either. Like, I remember being about 10 years old and I woke up one night and my bed, like the bedroom, like once you sat up in the bed, the bedroom door was to my left. And I remember waking up and seeing like this, he looked kind of young. It was all black and white, but he looked quite young, just in jeans and like a check shirt, and walked across the landing. And then I kind of went, oh, okay, and went back to sleep. Like, it was only me and my parents at home, so it wasn't as if like my brother was there or anything. So that was probably like the first thing I really remember. But
and your parents weren't swingers now or anything? They weren't?
Not that I'm aware of.
This wasn't like
I'd rather
a throuple situation.
I'd definitely rather die not knowing that photo than ever finding the truth behind that.
After this goes out live now, you get a phone call going, how's it going, Sharon? Listen, I know you've probably been scared since I was a kid, but
oh god, but we, like Tom was saying about Loftus Hall, my sister and I did this ghost tour or paranormal tour in Crumlin Road Jail in Belfast. And what I didn't know before going there, I'd been to it once before because we studied the last man that was ever hanged in Northern Ireland, and part of that was to go there. But it used to be a workhouse, poorhouse, and people would, kids would be sent there and whatever. So like you say, things with children are a little bit scarier. So there's one part you go down into, and they told us, they were like, look, sometimes this was where some of the children were being kept, and sometimes women have reported feeling someone take their hand, and there's like the rumor is that it's this little boy who will sometimes take the hand of a woman who would be older than him, as like a comfort thing. So maybe I don't know whether his parents died or he was an orphan or whatever happened, the story behind this kid, but there was a few weird things happened there. Like
it wasn't just a cover up for like a fella who used to work there who was doing a Weinstein or anything.
Oh god, I hope not.
Now, when you go in here now, you might feel someone pinching your arse. That's just a wee ghost.
Don't be alarmed. It's just a wee boy.
Ghost. He comes in, pinches your arse, smells his fingers, and he's away.
Oh god.
He doesn't like you to look at him.
Yeah.
Look. Yes.
Please don't look around because you'll be scared shitless, and also
everybody
a wetness.
Just keep your eyes closed.
Yeah.
There was one wing in particular. D wing was kind of the rumor has it that it was like the one that all the paramilitary beatings and stuff happened in. Like, people were murdered in there. That's the rumor. But it's tortured, exactly. And before that, apparently, when it was like the poorhouse workhouse, if I have this correct, it was like the psychiatric unit. And so we're all there, and everyone, I think it was maybe about 10 or 15 people in this group. So everyone's kind of scattered, and the guy that was taking it, he was like, look, we'll have no lights on, no phones on, no torches. No witnesses, exactly, when Harvey came in. So he's like, we'll just stand silently for a few minutes and see what people think. And so out of the corner of my eye, up on like the second landing, there was this particular door that was open, and I kept seeing like this flicker, and as if someone was peeking out the door. And we stood quietly for a few minutes, and then the guy, he was like, did anyone see anything? So a couple of people, they pipe up and they say, well, I heard this, or down at the end of the corridor I saw this. So I said to him, I was like, look, just up there, that particular door. He's like, yeah, apparently every time they close that door, it's not closed for more than a couple of minutes, and they come back and it's open again. Don't know the story behind the person that was housed in there. I'm sure there was many people, but it was just a bit weird that that particular one was the one that caught my eye through the whole thing. But I would highly recommend it. It was a good tour. Like, you go down into the tunnel. Like, if anyone has ever heard of Crumlin Road Jail, below the jail, there's like a tunnel that they would have taken prisoners across to the courthouse when it was before people decided to burn it every few months. So there's a lot of weird stuff that happened in the tunnel. Like people would say they saw orbs, like Tammy was saying, and that. So I would highly recommend. Like, I mean, even if you're not a believer, like I would highly recommend doing something like that, just kind of for the fun of it, if like, nothing else. But
they often say the places of trauma are ones that hold the spirits of the people, even if they didn't die in that particular place. They're traumatized there. Like I was in Auschwitz like last summer, and you know, it's grand sunshine, but the facilities were a bit shit, and there's no swimming pool or anything like that. The beds are awful hard.
No gift shop in the way I know.
Yeah. It was a really interesting tour. Do you know? And but when you're in the place, like there's places that were like down like 2 stories, you know, and one of the cells at the very bottom, in the height of summer, at the very bottom, down 2 floors at the very, very back of the main thing, not Auschwitz-Birkenau, but the main like kind of workhouses and stuff like that. There was one cell that people are like, you can't stay there long, and we were going down one hall, like, and it was a. Do you remember in school? I don't know if you had, all the schools in Ireland had this paint, right? And it was like this shiny paint that when people would breathe on it, it'd hold the moisture. So if you wiped your hand off it, it wasn't like, you know, it was a real weird paint that was like painted over brickwork. And it's that kind of paint that was kind of like murky, musty. You could smell people's breath and all. It was weird. And you're walking down one side of the hall and looping, stopping at the end and walking back up. And the fucking cell at the end was one where they had like a Jewish, I don't know, not a monk, not a rabbi, but like he was a Jewish like holy man.
A spiritual type person,
Yeah, and they had him down there and he was meditating down there and they had him you know, like fasting, starving him, and there's only like a crack of sunlight coming in through the thing, and he was like one of the longest surviving people in the whole of Auschwitz, with a really weird, dark, shit, heavy, ghostly, someone sitting on your chest while also like reaching into your colon and kind of, do you know that feeling that you want to take a shit, but you knew if you push not to come out, but you're still like going, like there's a force
the fear's
on you.
there.
Do you know, but just before the poo comes out and you make this face and you go like that kind of feeling in your colon box. There was that, but like no poo. And I was like, oh man, and you're heavy chested, and it's like when you get wine drunk and you feel like the dark coming in from the outside of your eyes. It was that kind of feeling. And I was like, oh my God, this is fuck. And everybody when we got back outside was like, when you passed by that cell, like, did you get that feeling like you were drunk and you wanted to do a poo? And they were like, yes. That was weird.
Did you not find the whole thing, like, because we went to one in it's just outside Berlin. I can't remember the name of the particular camp it was, but just the whole thing, like that silence. And I know people are respectful. Yeah, like I know people are very respectful because, you know, like you said, there was a lot of trauma happened there.
Yeah, but also if you're not respectful, the ADL will come and arrest you and you get a fine. So it's like,
yeah, that's right. You don't fuck with the Germans.
No.
But no, there's just that eeriness because we went to one and we went into this one section that they used to do the experiments, like the doctors, you know, would be, you know, human centipeding people and that kind of thing, like, and it was just like, it was horrible. I would never like learn history and take an interest in what has happened, but I would not recommend tours like that to anyone. That was really rough going.
Yeah, no, it's also we went to Florence. No, was it Venice? We went to Venice, and they were bringing us through the prisons in Venice, and you go across the Bridge of Sighs. Have you ever heard of that?
No.
So the Bridge of Sighs is this kind of tunnel system. Again, all of these fucking prisons have a tunnel system because they don't want cunts being brought to their deaths, you know. So we were in the prisons, in the cells, and it's like cells from the 14 and 1500s. So they're not that well constructed. Like they're pretty fucking grim, you know. And scratching on the wall, you can see like the human fingernails scratched on the walls and in the bricks and shit like that. And they kept it there. Like you're like, oh. So the Bridge of Sighs is the thing that they bring the prisoners over. And it's called the Bridge of Sighs because there's a view through like a trellised stone wall where you get to see one last view of the canals of Venice through the trellis, and it looks out. It's almost like ironically poignant view of Venice out into the sea. And most evenings when they've been brought to be executed, it was where the sun was setting. So everyone got to see their last sunset over their city of Venice, and they got to see the canals, and everyone having a good time and living life and having the crack while they're being like led through a tunnel. You get about 15-20 seconds of looking out this trellis as you walk by, and then you're brought down, and you'll never see sunlight again once you pass that little bit, and you go down into the dungeon parts where you're executed and all. Like crossing over that shit, I was like, whoa, get you. It wasn't like as poop inducing as Auschwitz now, but it was pretty fucking, when you know the context behind it, like, you're like,
did the prisoners know at that point that they were being led to their death? Did they mention that? Yeah,
it's famously like the Bridge of Sighs. Yeah, I'm just going to refresh my page here because I can't seem to get Tom on the thing. I'm going to refresh it and see. 1 second now.
In that Crumlin Road jail, whenever someone was due to be executed or hung the next day, what actually would happen is they would be in this room, and they wouldn't know that right behind this bookcase would slide out of the way. So someone would obviously guard them at night. So you'd be in this room. It's much bigger than the normal cells. They would get like a priest or a minister or whatever, depending on your religion, come in. They'd have a chat with you the night before. Prison guard would look after you, and then the next day they'd literally like slide this bookcase out of the way, and then right behind that is the gallows, and they still have the gallows there, like in the jail. You go into that condemned man cell, and they'll do the whole tour, and they'll pull it out of the way and show you that it's there. So it's just
shit bricks.
Pretty much, like, it's just like the reason that we had went during the day, and that's when they showed that, was because this guy, I think it was mentioned that sorry, I'm upside down, I'm trying to fix he was the last man that was ever hanged there, and they tried to get him to confess the night before to the murder of a girl, and they just couldn't get a confession of him. So they were talking about how he never knew. He might have had an inkling that he was going to the gallows the next day, but he did not know that right behind that supposedly innocent bookcase was his death, his imminent death.
Yeah, that's almost cruel that it's right there.
Yeah, it's like almost like their last, I don't know what the word is, but like the last laugh is on the prison guard, knowing that the next day that, this guy that the Bible that he wants to read from or something, on his last night, and just bizarre.
Yeah, you would wonder when you're being brought to the gallows. There's a kind of there's a thing around like people being hanged, that the gallows wood, the wood that builds the gallows, then it's taken down, and it's supposed to be burnt, but sometimes it's not burnt, and people would keep that petrified wood, and it has like the power of the people that died in it or whatever, like a haunted wood. Or there's places where people were executed, like there's legends of Golgotha, which is like the hill that Jesus and a load of other people in Jerusalem all were crucified on. And you'll know from the movie Dogma, when they have a golem that comes up out of the toilet that's made of shit. It's the Golgothan golem. It's a shit demon that's made of shit, and apparently it's a real thing from like mythology, where there's a golem that takes on human form and it's indestructible. It's made of shit. It's made from the poo of all of the people that were crucified, that when they die, when you die, you shit yourself, you void your bowels, and the whole mountain ends up getting, like, the whole hill of Golgotha gets covered in shit of dead people, and then all that shit is haunted, and it comes together and forms a person, and you can, if you do an incantation and rise that shit demon up, you can send it after your enemies and stuff like that. Very weird.
It's so funny, like all these different traditions and stuff, because like you're saying, obviously, I don't know about you guys, but like in Irish history, and there's so many like stories, like everyone grew up with a story, whether it was their school or, like Tom said, that road that turned out it was just the rat was on the road. But but here in Canada, even, like, there's not really many stories. Like, I just don't find like anyone that has a ghost story.
I think it's because they're more pragmatic, and the people aren't living there as long. So like in Canada, you wouldn't find many, because there probably wasn't like a folklorish tale, but there's indigenous peoples that still have their
very
tales.
much so.
So like there'd be local places where the stories that the modern day people would have is from indigenous peoples, but it always comes from a trauma. So say like in the northeast of England, like the Midwest and the West wasn't populated until the mid 1800s or after, but like the East Coast is populated from the late 1500s as the earliest, and then into like the 17th century was where all the real cruel shit happened, and then the 18th century was where some may say crueler shit happened when they created government and all this kind of stuff. But like before governments were formed and Britain was seceded from and all this kind of stuff, like some mad shit happened with Puritan religious people where they'd torture people and kill women and kill witches and, you know, take children away from families to fight in armies against their will, train them as children. And we think that shit had only happened in like Sparta or whatever, but that shit was happening in like the 1700s in America, do you know?
Oh yeah.
And that was a tradition that came from England during the 13th to 14th and 15th centuries, where they were getting women and just killing them if they spoke out of line and said, "Oh, you're a witch." And based on the fear of the people in the society at the time, they were like, "Well, shit, she must be a witch because, you know, we're all God-fearing people." And
well, that's it. A lot of it comes back to religion, whether it's Christianity or you know, whatever religion it is that you believe in. But a lot of it, you know, even from listening to just the start of this conversation, a lot of what you said, Gordo, it's a lot to do with whether it's Catholicism or, you know, whatever.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of stuff around trauma, and then when you mix a bit of religion or a bit of God in with it, like, you know, a Christian would say it's a demon from hell, whereas like, you know, a Muslim would say it's a jinn, D-J-I-N-N, which is the etymology of the word genie. So like if you pray to the genie, he grants your wishes. So like a jinn in Muslim faith is a like what I was talking about earlier on with Archon, like it's an extra dimensional demon. It's a ghost that has its own personality and its own identity but doesn't have a body. And they're actually jealous of us and the fact that we get to experience time linearly and we can love and we can grow old and we can die, whereas they never can. So they live forever and they can't have feelings or fall in love or have emotions or touch or feel or do anything, yet they have the gift of immortal life. Whereas we have a mortal life, but we can do all that cool stuff. So it's like a way for people in the Muslim faith to feel happy and content that even though our life is finite, that we can experience much more than God can. And similarly with the Greek mythos, where the gods of Olympus would live on the mountain and they are separated from humans, and because they could live forever but they could never have children. And this was the great gift of Greek society, was like they would revere the children and the women, but children more so. So the biggest gift that a human could give the gods is if you let the god ride you and then give him a child. And that's what they did. All the gods came down and they picked a few of the good looking Greek ones. I don't know if it was, you know, Titman or an Arseman, and he'd grab a good looking Greek bird and he'd blow his beans, and then she'd have like a demigod, and that lad would be like, well, I'm mortal but I have superpowers or whatever, and it just diluted and diluted and diluted all the way down. But that was like the story that they would tell normal people, which is, I know you're not a god and I know you're not immortal and people die young, but we get to feel stuff and we get to have the gift of children, which they don't have. So feel grateful for the little things that you do have, because you're better than gods in that way. Do you know? So there's like a belief around, like, you know, ghosts are people that have died. They come back because they're jealous of us being still alive. And I think people who believe in ghosts so fervently are almost kind of like cocky about being still alive in a way, if you know what I mean. Like they're like, yeah, I'm alive, ghosts, and you're not alive. Nah. Or it's like, I don't want to let that person go. They see ghosts of people because they're like, well, you know, I see the ghost of the person who lived here before, or my granny or something like that, because they don't want to let that person go. There's always a reason behind a ghost or a haunting that's more practical than an actual ghost. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. It's actually interesting. A friend that I have here, where she used to live up until a little while ago, we used to go for like brunches at her apartment. It would turn into like all day drinking sessions. But she had a ghost that was called Jessica. They just called her Jessica. And this one particular day, like, I'd never really experienced anything. So we were sitting on her balcony, and you can go through like the patio door to go through her bedroom into the ensuite. And one of my other friends, like my friend who owned the condo, she would make her bed like it would be, hotel, straight.
Hospital corners.
And hospital quarters, exactly. And my friend goes through to go to the washroom, and she's like, was someone on your bed? And you can just see like the outline as if someone had laid on the bed.
Oh, creeper.
And it was just
like in the Bodyguard, creepy. And she had a bit of jizz on her pillow. Whitney Houston's like,
the Bodyguard was so weird.
Who jizzed on my pillow? And I.
I said, Whitney's going to come back and haunt you now.
Yeah. Did you hear how she died? Did you ever hear how she died?
Absolute madness.
Like,
no.
In the bath, right?
Yeah, but did you hear how she'd taken some drugs, and when she went to get in the bath, she used to have these baths that were she used to love a really hot bath, but she made this bath like with boiled water.
Oh, shit.
So when she put her foot in it, she went into a kind of a shock, but because she was on the drugs, she couldn't actually feel it. And when the heat hit her, her blood pressure spiked and she went unconscious, and then fell unconsciously into the bath of boiling water and got cooked.
Oh my gosh.
She got cooked in the bath, man. She got broiled to death while unconscious.
That is rough.
Isn't that rough? There's a detail
that should be a topic. That should be a topic. Is weird celebrity deaths.
Whitney Houston, man, fucking, that's a bad way to go. One of the weirder ones. I'm gonna refresh this page. Give me 1 second, see if we can get Tom back to say goodbye.
I just saw Marie's comment. She was baked in more than one way. I really enjoy that.
Yeah, it's fucking, oh man, I don't know. It's a weird way to die. But one of the weirder ones, Tom is not coming back to say goodbye. I don't know what we're going to do about this now, because it's his Ramble pod. I don't know what's going on. So, yeah, one of the weirder stories I ever heard, and it's one of the most famous hauntings of all time, is the Amityville Horror House. Have you ever heard of Amityville?
Yeah,
I've heard of it. I've done like a little bit of reading, but I don't know enough about it to.
Like, the main story, and it was in one of the Conjuring movies, is basically like there was this family, the Lutz family, and they bought this house, and they were doing it up, and the walls are bleeding, and the house is going like, get out, and they go into one room and it's real cold and there's loads of flies and all, and they see like the ghosts of little kids, and then the dad gets kind of possessed by the demon. And if you ever watch the movie, it's Ryan Reynolds. Sharon, you'd love it. He's at peak Ryan Reynolds, and he's out in the back, and there's at least 2 full minutes of him just angrily chopping wood. So if you can get yourself done in less than 2 minutes, it's just spot on Ryan Reynolds, like
Good
peak,
to know.
peak Reynolds. And you might have to pause it and rewind a few times, but like it's good, right?
Do you happen to have the timestamp, or?
I'll find it out and I put it in the comments in a second.
Awesome, thanks, Gordon.
It's no flicking around. Under remote control, I mean. We'll get you the timestamp. So, yeah. So the dad kind of what's your man's name? Lutz. What's his first name? I can't remember. Anyway.
Oh, did you think is it Kellen Lutz? No.
No, I can't remember his name. But they get freaked out so much, and the kids are getting fucking getting haunted by these spirits, and eventually, like one of the nights, like they get so freaked out, their stuff fall and all this stuff, they run out of the house, and they never go back. And then they go on all these, TV shows and do all these fucking interviews and all this stuff. And the whole world is like, Amityville Horror, such a scary fucking tale or whatever. And then very soon after that, the wife, Mrs. Lush, she gets cancer and she dies. And then the dad ends up going like bankrupt, and all the kids had a shit life, and this whole thing, and they're like, oh my god, the family is so haunted, and it's such a terrible tale and all this stuff. And that's the overriding kind of public opinion story about the Amityville house. We did an episode on it ages ago for those conspiracy guys, and in actual fact, there's a much scarier story. Dave is lit up there. What were you going to say, Dave?
No, is that not the thing where did some guy take the house afterwards?
This is what I'm saying. The Lutz guy takes the house after. But what happened before the Lutzes? So the Amityville Horror story and the tale of the movie from the 70s, late 70s, early 80s. There's another one done in like 2004 with Ryan Reynolds. And it's like a big, it was in the fucking, the Ed and Lorraine Warren movies, The Conjuring as well. and the woman comes and she's all like, you know, the owl one from something about Mary that shows her tits, the real long tits, and she's like that. She's some medium woman. And it's all about this haunting, this horror, this haunting. The walls are bleeding and all this kind of shit. But nobody ever tells the fucking story of what happened before, which was a family called the DeFeo family, right? Ronnie DeFeo was the oldest son, and his dad was in with the mob. And one night, Ronnie DeFeo was sitting in the basement, and his whole family were asleep upstairs. And then he puts on some video that he had got off his mate, and apparently he got possessed by a demon, and he got a shotgun, and he stalked, padded in his bare feet from bedroom to bedroom, and killed all of his brothers and sisters, and then his parents. Right? That was the thing that happened in the fucking Amityville house before the Lutzes move in, and no one ever talks about that. But the maddest thing is that it seems like somehow everybody was killed at the same time. Because imagine if you were a man of da in the bed, and you hear a shotgun blast.
Yeah, I was thinking that when you were saying that, I was like, how could you kill someone with a gun?
And they were all shot, right? He had a disabled little brother, and his little brother had been moved in a way that meant that he would have had to have been helped by somebody who knew how to move him, because he was getting up to get into his wheelchair, and he was shot. The other brother was shot in the back of the head. So if someone had come into the room to move one kid, the other kid would obviously wake up. There was a child at the very top, who was the youngest child at the very top bedroom, and they were shot after sitting up. They were shot in the chest, and it blew them back down. So all the forensics and it was done, because if they shot him in the chest while they were lying down, it'd go into the mattress, but the bullet hole went into the wall behind, so they know that's why they're sitting up and all this stuff. So there's like a bunch of different shots. Surely the dad would be getting up. Ronnie was his name as well, so it was Ronnie DeFeo Jr. and Daddy Ronnie. Surely Daddy Ronnie would get up and be like bopping around the place, like shaking his fist, who's shooting up my kids in the house or whatever. So the ma shot.
But then did they ever know, like, if it was the parents were shot first or something, and then
nobody can know. They can't tell what way it went. And then little Ronnie was like blamed for it. He blew his head off. So nobody ever really knew what happened. And from the episode that we did, spoiler alert, that it must have been done by multiple shooters. And because the DeFeo family were fucking with the mob, maybe 5 mobsters went into the house at the same time. It was like 3, 2, 1, pew, 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 pew. And nobody had a chance to move. Very fucking weird story. But that part, the DeFeo part, is never told in the movies. And then I think the Lutz family bought this house. It's a huge house. And found that like it was too expensive, really. The size was too big, and there was too much work needed to be done because it was left fallow for too long. And they just wanted to get away from it without any like negative equity or whatever. So he just bounced. They just ran away and went, it's haunted, and to make the money back, we're going to tell everyone it's haunted, get a few bob off the news and magazine articles, pay off the debt that we owe, and fucking bounce. Do you know? Super weird haunted story, like one of the weirdest fucked up ghost stories ever. But it's totally like,
like you said, it's glassed over, like, or glazed over. No one talks about that side of things.
Absolutely.
No, is that maybe I have it wrong, but that's what I thought you were going to say. There's a guy bought the house after that again.
Is there? Yeah.
And
does he get haunted?
No, he was like, didn't believe in anything, and just he bought it real cheap. He got it for half nothing because of what had happened before. And he's lived there happily since. He won't do interviews or anything. He just says, I'm happy.
And they changed the house because it looks like, in the old design, it looks like the house had eyes with the windows at the top.
Oh yeah, with the windows at the top.
Like whatever. But yeah, like we go through that whole thing, like, and all the dealings and all the Ronnie, like the DeFeo family murders, as they were known. Like that's like the majority of the show, and then the last part is like the Lutz part that you've seen in the films. But there's a tale there that wasn't told, that was, I think, papered over in the press. Because imagine, like, young boy kills his whole family. The minute people start looking into that, going like, but if he started shooting them, why were the kids not up running around? How were they all shot in their beds without waking up? Like, people start asking questions.
But then if there was mob involvement, do you think someone was getting a backhander to kind of keep this all
I would imagine.
quieter?
Yeah, totally. So fill it up, like put another family in there, and 2 months after the thing, say that it's haunted, and that's why there's weird stuff happening there. Like super deadly cover up, like done really well, you know. Is Tom going to get back to say goodbye, or what's going on?
Say goodbye.
Gone forever. Oh,
Yeah,
there's Gordo coming back.
I just had to refresh to see if I get Tom in. Is Tom not coming back? Is Tom off? He's here in the room still.
He's deserted us.
Oh, hello.
Oh, there's a that's not Tom. What story, boss?
Hello.
How are you doing?
Hey.
All right, yeah,
I'm
good.
gonna head out, guys. So it was nice to catch up with you.
Great
See you next week,
Sharon. See you next week.
Okay, take care. Bye.
Bye. What's up, dude?
All right, you?
Yeah, fairly good.
What case were you talking about then?
The Amityville Horror.
Amityville Horror. Yeah, that's based on a true story, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. Yeah. Well, I mean, as true as ghosts are real.
No, I totally believe in ghosts. Yeah, I'm living with Mum and Dad's house during the virus, and every night at about 1 a.m., it sounds like a door opens and steps go down. It's mad. Every night at 1 o'clock, the same noise and the same footstep sounds. I haven't told them. I didn't want to scare them, but it's distinctive. It's so distinctive. Yeah, no, I believe in ghosts. Totally, yeah.
And would you ever record the footsteps, or is it more of a sensory thing?
Oh, I don't know. No, my luck. I'll set it up, and on one night it doesn't happen. I'll be all set up, ready to go. It's
like trying to catch Santa Claus or something.
It's exactly right. Yeah, exactly right. Yeah, we're in a pretty old house that used to be for a ship captain. It's quite a big. It's a big house by the sea in Falmouth in Cornwall. So there's a lot of history in this house.
Oh yeah, Cornwall is haunted as fuck, man.
Say again?
Cornwall is haunted as fuck as an area.
Yeah. There's a lot of old, beautiful old buildings here with a lot of history. A lot of history in it. Yeah. What accent's that? Where are you from?
I'm from Ireland.
Yeah. My ex-wife was from Castlebar, County Mayo.
I'm not near there now, but she stayed there. Obviously, if you're in Cornwall, I'd say.
She has, yeah. We've got 3 lovely kids together, so yeah, she's all good.
Happy out. Well, Thomas just informed me that his internet's got haunted.
His internet's got.
So he's not going to be able to join us to say goodbye. So I suppose we'll wrap it up because the time is getting away from us. Yeah, we'll say good night. What's your name, sir? True Crime Unsolved?
Mark, yeah, Mark.
Good man, Mark. So I suppose I'll say goodbye on Tom's behalf. So goodbye. Thanks to Dave. Thanks to Sharon. Thanks to Anne-Marie. Thanks to Tammy, all the way from Valley Spirit Communications. And everybody else who joined us. We had Garrett on, Tom, who has sadly passed on the Get Vocal room. Not in real life, but his computer, Lord of Mercy, and the internet connections of the faithfully departed. We had comments from Matt Thompson, Neil Cowan, and Jerry, and Ellen Foley as well. So look I don't know, man. We're going to have to fucking get together and throw Tom a few bob on the Patreon to try and get a better internet connection, because we can't be going on with this in this day and age. I'm trying my best to help him out anyway, and loads of love. I'm sure y'all know where to find him and all that crack on all the social medias. So I guess that's the Royal Ramble. I'll be here next Sunday with Tom as well, hopefully. And go on, see ya.